This is just a little follow-up to a couple videos I uploaded yesterday. First of all, this video here, where I was talking about the Canelo Alvarez-Callum Smith fight being on pay-per-view. I mistakenly thought and said in this video that DAZN were offering a 3-month subscription as part of the pay-per-view price, when actually it's a 4-month subscription as part of the pay-per-view price. And I'd like to thank the people who politely corrected me in the comments section. Not the idiots who are just being rude for no reason or because they're butthurt about something I said in a different video. The people who politely corrected me. I'm always happy to be politely corrected if I've made a mistake. If there's a typo in the video title or anything like that, I'm happy to be politely corrected. I like to get things right. Now, the reason why this is significant, of course, is because there was me thinking it was a 3-month subscription they were offering as part of the pay-per-view price. A 3-month subscription is $60. The pay-per-view price is $70. So why would you pay $70 for the pay-per-view when you can get the exact same thing for $10 less going directly through the DAZN app? And anybody with an internet connection can get DAZN. There are very few people in this day and age in the United States who don't have an internet connection. So yeah, now that I know it's 4 months, it makes sense because you're actually getting 4-month subscription to DAZN as part of the pay-per-view price at a $10 discount. So that's a smart thing to do for DAZN, and it's a smart way for them to increase the number of multi-month subscriptions to their platform. With that being said, there are still going to be people, and I have to imagine it might be the majority of first-time DAZN viewers or subscribers who are going to pay the $69.99, not realizing that they could just pay $20. Okay, because a lot of people are not actually going to want a 4-month subscription. They're just Canelo fans. They just want to pay for one night of boxing. And because they're so used to paying $69.99 for one night of boxing, they might not realize that you can pay $20 for 1 month and get the Canelo fight included going directly through the DAZN app. So that's still going to be happening. And I'm not sure why there were some people upset with the fact that I was saying that DAZN are putting this on pay-per-view. They are putting it on pay-per-view. It's going through pay-per-view providers on various different cable networks in America. Boxing Scene, which is owned by CBS, in the article that I got the information from, are calling it a pay-per-view. It's just a pay-per-view where you get a 4-month DAZN subscription for free included in the package, essentially. Anyway, again, shout out to the people who politely corrected me, because it does make all the difference to that story. Now, the other video was the one where I talked about the glove controversy and the ring controversy surrounding the Usyk Chisora fight. Now, as I said in that video, disputes over boxing gloves are standard fare. Sometimes a fighter or their team might be genuinely concerned about the gloves the opponent is wearing, not having enough padding and so on. But a lot of the time, they don't really have any genuine concern. They're just trying to unsettle the opponent by complaining about as many things as possible. This is very, very, very common in boxing. Anybody who's been involved in professional boxing behind the scenes will tell you it's very common for teams to try and complain about this and complain about that. Even when they're in the dressing room inspecting a fighter having their hands wrapped. Okay, they're a representative of the other team. They're coming into the opponent's dressing room to watch him have his hands wrapped, and they'll just complain about stuff. Oh, rewrap the hand, and they'll try and pull all kind of shenanigans to try and unsettle the team and unsettle the fighter. This is very common in boxing. Now, I'm not saying that Usyk's team were necessarily trying to do that to Chisora, but they may well have been. All I can tell you is I watched that Derek Chisora-Usyk fight. I've seen lots of still images from the fight, and I can't see anything wrong with those gloves. The shape of the padding on a knuckle looks very uniform. It doesn't look collapsed or disintegrated in any way. And I think it was just a pretty standard, glove dispute that you get on so many shows. It's probably because they weren't familiar with the brand Fly. And as a representative of a fighter, you're always trying to look to get an edge where you can. Now, in terms of the ring, and I'll come on to boxing gloves in a little bit. I'll come back onto that topic because I want to talk about this interview with John McDermott. But in terms of the ring, shout out again to Chris Andre. He left a comment on that video where I was talking about the Usyk Chisora thing. And, he was basically asking, isn't there any legal recourse for, surprising somebody with a much smaller ring than was agreed to in the contract? And my answer to that is, I don't know. Boxing is such an unregulated business. And I have to imagine that the language in the contracts is so ambiguous that it still allows for people to spring a small ring on someone on the night of the fight, because it's been going on for years. And it's one of the most common stories you'll hear from fighters when they talk about, especially when they talk about traveling around to different places. They'll tell you stories about the ring was tiny and, all this kind of business. So I don't know if there's any legal recourse against stuff like that. But the fact that it's still going on would probably suggest that there isn't, or that it's a gray area. Lennox Lewis, back in the days, May 10th, 1996, he fought Ray Mercer. Lennox Lewis had a very tough fight against Mercer. Many people believe that he was lucky to get the decision. After the fight, Lewis revealed that he had agreed to fight in a much bigger ring, and that when he turned up, the ring was tiny compared to what he was expecting. And he, used that. He blamed the ring size, the small ring size, basically, at least partly, on why the fight was as tough as it was. He said when, he's obviously a very tall man, 6'5". When he takes 2 steps backwards, his back is hitting the ropes. And he said that they basically did that to ensure that Ray Mercer could win the fight. So again, this kind of thing, unfortunately, is standard fare in boxing, and it goes on all the time. If the commission are approving things like this, and certainly when it comes to the gloves, you can have whatever issue you want with your opponent's gloves. But at the end of the day, if the commission are happy with them, I don't really think there's much you can do about it in most instances. Unless you're somebody like Mayweather who has that kind of clout, normally you can't really do anything about the gloves if the commission approve them. Now, this is a slightly different situation, coming back to John McDermott, because this wasn't a case of him complaining about his opponent's gloves, because he's talking about when he fought Tyson Fury in the rematch. He wasn't really complaining about Fury's gloves. He was complaining about the fact that he wasn't allowed to wear the same gloves as Fury. Fury wore Cleto Reyes gloves for the McDermott rematch. And McDermott basically wanted to wear the same gloves. I can't remember if he said it was in the contract. I think he may have done. It was in the contract that he could wear whatever gloves he wanted. But when he turned up on fight night, they wouldn't let him wear the same gloves as Fury. And instead they gave him, I think, Lonsdale gloves. And he said they were very uncomfortable and he just couldn't make a proper fist with them. And he was so unhappy about this that he told the people, look, the fight's off. I'm leaving. And again, it's been a while since I watched this interview. It was back in March of this year. I think he said he actually left the building and was in his car. And then a representative of the television network, I think, was it Sky? It may have been Sky, came to talk to him, and they told him basically that they would sue him out of house and home if he didn't fight. So he was essentially forced to go back in, put those uncomfortable gloves on, because I don't think there was a specific brand from what I can remember him saying in this interview. You guys can go watch the interview for yourselves and you'll hear all the exact details. I don't think there was a specific brand that he wanted to wear. I think that in the contract, he just basically said, you know, he wants to be able to wear whatever brand that the commission, you know, the British Boxing Board of Control will approve. So that you can only chalk up to shenanigans, either from Team Fury or Team Fury in cahoots with the board, whatever the case may be. And again, unfortunately, that kind of thing goes on a lot. Yeah. Where, I mean, even in the Vladimir Klitschko Kubrat Pulev fight, Kubrat Pulev, if you go look up the articles, was very unhappy with the gloves that he was given, because the gloves that he had to wear for the Klitschko fight were Klitschko's own brand. These were not like Grants or Rivals or Everlast or anything like that. These were Klitschko's own brand. And Pulev said that they were extremely uncomfortable, and he complained many times, you know, to the commission and to Klitschko's team. And I think something was done about the gloves. Tyson Fury told a similar story, actually, about when he fought Vladimir. And he said initially the Pathin Sport gloves that he got were horrible. Or was it the first pair he got were good, and then the next pair, I can't remember it. I'm sure you can go and find the interviews with Tyson Fury where he explains it, because it's a long time since I heard it. But there was definitely some glove dispute that Tyson Fury had with Klitschko, that Pulev had with Klitschko, John McDermott had with Fury. I mean, I remember O'Hara Davis in one of the videos on his channel talking about how the first time he ever wore, I think it was Everlast Power Locks, because he tends to wear Everlast Power Lock now. The first time he ever wore them was when he got his opponent's gloves, or he got somebody else's gloves by mistake. And so someone got a pair of gloves that weren't very comfortable for them, which was O'Hara was supposed to wear, and so on. So that's how he discovered Everlast Power Locks, if memory serves me correct. So yeah, glove disputes in boxing, unfortunately, very common, standard fare. Sometimes there's legitimate concerns. Sometimes there is legitimate shenanigans, but other times it's just one team trying to unsettle the other and get an edge over them. And that's all it is. I'll leave you with that. Catch you on the next video.